Good morning, my name is Chris Collins. I work for Duke University's Central IT Department, and I do automation-y and container-y things. Today I'd like to talk to you about embracing new technology, specifically how to damage trust, increase stress, and create worry among all your friends and coworkers. This is a kind of retrospective look at my attempt to bring container technology into Duke IT. It's not specific to that technology, and this isn't a technical talk. This is more about kind of the culture and the failings that I had trying to make my service a success within the organization. So without further ado, this is embracing new technology in the context of containers in my own personal experience. So something critical when you try to embrace a new technology and bring it into an organization is that you really need to evangelize for that technology. You need to tell everybody how great it is, why it's great, over and over and over again, right? But if you really want to just kind of ruin people's expectations, you need to evangelize too much, right? You got to be that person that's talking about it 24/7 in every meeting, in every hallway, at 5:30 in the bar over beers. Your coworkers need to be like, oh my God, is he still talking about this? It's 5:30 and we're drinking beers, right? If you can really just let everybody know how great this is to the point that they really want nothing to do with it, you're on the right track, right? Along with that, your technology has to be your new hammer. You've got this great technology and it has a very specific application that you started looking at it for, and it might be the perfect fit. But then, what else could this thing be used for? It's awesome. I need to go casting around and see if I can find other problems to try to fix with this problem. With this technology. This goes hand in hand with the evangelization. You're just looking for things to implement this technology with, right? And that really kind of causes a little bit of distrust in your decision-making skills among your coworkers when they just see that that's really, this technology is great, but maybe it's not applicable in every case, right? But it's applicable in your case, and it's applicable for everything you want to do. So just make sure everybody knows that, right? So they can really, the next time you walk down the hall, they'll be like, oh geez, he's going to tell us about how great containers are, right? At some point, somebody's going to come up to you and say, okay, you've been talking about these containers or this new technology or whatever. I have this problem. Can your technology do this thing? And you're going to be so excited that they came and talked to you. Like, yes, it can totally do it. But implicit in their question is also the question of, should your technology do this thing? But if you're really on the right track, you're going to completely ignore that part of it and say, yes, it totally should do it. It may not be the right fit for everybody. Even if they're really interested, even if it's something that they want to look at, it might not be the fit for that particular problem. Maybe they need to start somewhere else and look at it. Maybe you could have guided them to say, okay, this doesn't work right here like this, but let's try it over here so you get more comfortable with it and have an idea of how this would work, and maybe you could figure out how it would apply to what it is you just asked me about. But you definitely don't want to do any of that if you really want to ruin your relationship with everybody. You're on the right track if you skip all of that. You want to take this new technology and think about all the great things you can do with it and all the great new things that you can do surrounding it. Because at this point, your new technology is kind of a fresh start. So why not start fresh with other things as well? So maybe you're implementing containers and you say, well, maybe we could try this new monitoring thing with these containers. And wouldn't it be great? Maybe we could try out a new programming language while we're doing this implementation. And since we're starting from scratch, let's use a whole different operating system, right? And you build this new complex thing that's all these different things that nobody in your group has ever done before, thinking totally out of the box, to where you end up completely boxed in and you can't really move because every little thing is dependent on each other. You just wanted to implement containers, but now you have to build a VM provisioning process to install the operating system that you're trying out and talk to the monitoring guys and wait for them to set up the new monitoring stuff, or maybe not wait for them to set it up and try to re-implement it yourself. And when you get the 10,000 foot view and you're really looking at this and somebody else looks at it They have no idea how anything works. They don't know how it works. They don't know how it's related, how one thing talks to another thing. And they really need an advanced alien civilization to come in and say, okay, we can do this for you. But there's no way you humans are going to be able to figure this out because it's all just kind of bunched together, right? This one in particular is really good at just pissing off your coworkers, just completely, right? You also want to underestimate the work involved. It's one thing to just say, I want to implement some containers or I want to implement a new technology. But you also need to really forget that there's other stuff that goes into it, right? In the container example, maybe you want to try out containers, but it doesn't necessarily work so great performance-wise if you're not using on an LVM thin pools for the storage, right? But we're not doing anything with LVM thin pools, so okay, we got to implement that on the servers, and really it would make more sense if we did it on an operating system designed for the containers. So let's implement the atomic host, all the stuff that we just talked about, right? Underestimate that all that stuff is related, and you can just go in and say, this new technology is going to change everything as long as we just change everything, right? Yeah, I actually said that at one point in a meeting, and looking back on that, it's extremely embarrassing. I still get teased about it because that's not realistic. It's not a realistic scope to say that everybody needs to drop everything and re-architect everything that they're doing with their organization just to fit this new technology in, no matter how great it is. You can fit it in steps. You can't try to shove this giant box of changes in and have it work for people. Right. Don't ever say that to somebody. It's just not good. If you really kind of want to create some worry around the supportability of this new service that you're building, and if you really want to try to turn off customers from coming to your service, you should change targets and change targets frequently, right? You originally started looking at your new technology to help customer A with something. You're in the enviable position of being able to spend all your time looking at this new technology, but they have real jobs to do. They have real things to build. So maybe they can't drop everything and figure out how their workflow is going to work in this new technology, no matter how cool you tell them it is. They can't just drop everything to work on it, right? So you're really in a holding pattern waiting for them to get involved. When customer B shows up and they say, hey, I've heard about this great thing. We want to try something. Can we do this? Yes. Pivot immediately. Leave customer A kind of hanging while they're taking a little bit too long. Start working on a product for customer B, right? That way customer A and customer B each only get half of a working service. Customer A has the half that you built for them. Customer B is only getting 50% of your time while you try to support customer A and continue to build something for customer B. And when customer C comes along, they're going to be hesitant because they don't know if they're going to have your focus to implement the thing for them. They don't know if they're going to get half of a product, something that works okay, but is sort of still a pain point to work around, right? If you only have big customer A and customer B, you're not going to get customer C. Don't consider other people's schedules either. Just like with customer A, they need to, recover costs or whatever. They can't drop everything to work on this product and figure out what their workflow is. Your coworkers can't as well. They've got real jobs too. This thing might be super awesome, and you might want them to just stop doing what it is they're doing and focus entirely on this new product, but they feasibly cannot pull that off, right? And if you continue to push that, and you continue to push it, and you continue to push it, your coworkers are going to get frustrated with you, and you're going to get frustrated with them, and your customers are going to get frustrated with you, and you're going to get frustrated with them. And when you see the manager of customer A, and you're like, hey, when are you going to give me some time to work on this workflow thing so we can get this thing set up for you, they're just going to get more and more annoyed and less likely to put any effort into it. Everybody's got their own time. Just because your technology is awesome, in your own opinion, doesn't mean that they have the time to deal with it, even if it's true. So, they don't have time to do anything. I have the time. I still have the access because I'm involved in the Linux administration thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and set everything up myself, right? I can do everything. It's fine. It's fine. They'll get a finished product later. They're going to thank me later. Spoiler alert. Nobody thanks you later for this, right? When you set something up in a vacuum, you're doing it yourself. Then you're the only person who knows it, right? You're doing everything by yourself. You're building everything by yourself. Nobody's checking your work. Nobody is looking at what you've done. Nobody is seeing where the gaps in your documentation is, or if you've even written documentation. Nobody knows what you're doing on a daily basis. You maybe report to your boss that you're doing something, but your coworkers have just left you alone in a cube for 6 months, and they're like, I don't know what he does. He talks about containers, that's maybe it. And nobody has any idea how the thing that you're building works, right? So you end up all by yourself, all alone, right? And cribbing something from Ashley's presentation, nobody succeeds by themselves. So if you're following these handy-dandy steps, you'll be well on the way to not succeeding by yourself, right? You kind of pigeonhole yourself by doing it all by yourself. Nobody knows what's going on. That means you're the support person, right? If a customer is having trouble figuring out how to use your products, they have to jabber you directly. If a coworker has been paged because something happened in the middle of the night, they have to call you in the middle of the night and figure out how it works. Because probably you haven't documented it either, because you're working in a vacuum and you know how it works, you don't have to use the documentation, right? Your managers have no idea what it is you've done or why they're paying for these 6 VMs and that service and the logging thing up there, right? Because nobody really knows what's going on. This is your life, right? You're all alone. Things are on fire. You're the only one that can do it, right? It's not really fun, but if you really want to do it, these steps, follow these steps. This ties into the arrogance thing as well. Expect everybody to be as up to speed in your technology as you are, right? Despite the fact that you've literally been doing it for years by yourself and they haven't looked at it at all, when they come up to you and ask you a question and you explain it to them, and then they come up and ask you a question again, maybe it's the same question a week or so later, immediately get annoyed and think, I've already told you the answer to this. I haven't documented anywhere. And I'm expecting you to remember it based on the phone call we had at 3 o'clock in the morning when you asked me why this thing was broken after you were paid because my thing broke. Get annoyed that because you've ruined some of these relationships and they're already a little bit rough, get annoyed that these people are asking you how this stuff works. And because they're not as up to speed as you are, even though they're kind of looking at it for the first time, right? Just be this guy, right? Not Ron Swanson himself. He's awesome. Especially if you want to model him on your woodworking products and stuff, that's cool. But the I know more than you aspect is not good for your relationship with your coworkers. And to be annoyed when they have questions for you is not good for that relationship as well. So these are the harder parts to think about when you look back at it, right? It's entirely arrogance on my part to hear criticism of my technology and my implementation of it and to be completely blind to it. I thought it doesn't matter what their complaints are because they don't all see the big picture. They don't know where we're going. This thing is insignificant in the whole world of things. When they say something doesn't work, it's because you failed to explain to them properly how it works, or failed to get them up to speed, or failed to document it. On top of that, each of their pain points, each of their complaints is a pain point for them in that moment, right? So whether or not it's something that you consider significant in the big picture, whatever that is, that pain point is a pain point that's real for them in that moment. It's a pain point that's preventing them from fully adopting your technology, or it's causing them issues when they're being paged by something. It might be that, your thing's going to fix it in 6 weeks when you finally implement this thing, if they just got to deal with it for now. But that's not an acceptable answer because it's a real pain point for people you care about right now. and just kind of overlooking that is entirely arrogant. They may not have an idea what the big picture is in the whole, right? But they shouldn't have to. Like, you should be able to fix their pain points early, or address their pain points and give them real, even if you can't actually fix it, as long as you can listen to them and acknowledge it, and rather than just brush them off. That's the important part. If you do all of this stuff though, congratulations. This is what you look like. You're stressed out and nobody has adopted your service, or maybe it's being adopted, but it's taking years to get there. Everybody's a little bit worried about whether it's going to stay or it's going to go, or what happens if you disappear or get hit by a bus, right? So this is how you embrace a new technology if you really want to create worry, increase stress, and alienate your coworkers. That's the end of the overall presentation, but I did want to say that it is difficult to talk about this as your failings or whatever in front of a group of people. I hope that if you knew this already, and I'm sure some of you already did, that you go and tell people who might not know it already, because I don't think everybody is born knowing that you have to consider the culture and you have to consider the human aspect of adopting a new technology when you do something like this. It's really too easy in technology to focus on the technology and only the technology. And you really can't just develop in a void. There's real human interactions that go into producing something. So if you already knew all this, tell somebody else. And if you didn't know this, I hope this helps. And I'm happy to talk about this or other things. Again, my name is Chris Collins. This is how you can get in touch with me. The presentation slides are the link below. And if you would like to talk in the hallway or send me an email or whatever, I'm happy to do it. So thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Have a good afternoon.